Hello friends, I'm Ellie, welcome to Cardboard Design. Today, I will tell you meaningful fairy tales. Let's listen together. First fairy tale, The Devil with the Three Golden Hairs. There was once a poor woman who gave birth to a little son, and as he came into the world with a caul on, it was predicted that in his 14th year he would have the king's daughter for his wife. It happened that soon afterwards the king came into the village, and no one knew that he was the king. And when he asked the people what news there was, they answered, "A child has just been born with a caul on. Whatever anyone so born undertakes turns out well." It is prophesied, too, that in his 14th year he will have the king's daughter for his wife. The king, who had a bad heart and was angry about the prophecy, went to the parents and, seeming quite friendly, said,
"You poor people, let me have your child, and I will take care of it."
At first they refused, but when the stranger offered them a large amount of gold for it, and they thought, "It is a luck child, and everything must turn out well for it," they at last consented, and gave him the child. The king put it in a box and rode away with it until he came to a deep piece of water. Then he threw the box into it and thought,
"I have freed my daughter from her unlooked pursuer."
The box, however, did not sink but floated like a boat, and not a drop of water made its way into it. And it floated to within 2 miles of the king's chief city, where there was a mill, and it came to a standstill at the mill dam. A miller's boy, who by good luck was standing there, noticed it and pulled it out with a hook, thinking that he had found a great treasure. But when he opened it, there lay a pretty boy inside, quite fresh and lively. He took him to the miller and his wife, and as they had no children they were glad, and said,
"God has given him to us."
They took great care of the foundling, and he grew up in all goodness. It happened that once in a storm, the king went into the mill, and he asked the mill folk if the tall youth was their son.
"No,
Answered they.
he's a foundling. 14 years ago, he floated down to the mill dam in a box, and the mill boy pulled him out of the water."
Then the king knew that it was none other than the luck child which he had thrown into the water, and he said,
"My good people, could not the youth take a letter to the queen? I will give him 2 gold pieces as a reward."
"Just as the king commands."
Answered they, and they told the boy to hold himself in readiness. Then the king wrote a letter to the queen, wherein he said,
"As soon as the boy arrives with this letter, let him be killed and buried, and all must be done before I come home."
The boy set out with this letter, but he lost his way, and in the evening came to a large forest. In the darkness he saw a small light. He went towards it and reached a cottage. When he went in, an old woman was sitting by the fire quite alone. She started when she saw the boy, and said,
Whence do you come, and whither are you going?
I come from the mill,
He answered,
and wish to go to the queen, to whom I am taking a letter. But as I have lost my way in the forest, I should like to stay here overnight.
You poor boy,
said the woman.
you have come into a den of thieves, and when they come home they will kill you.
Let them come.
Said the boy.
I am not afraid, but I am so tired that I cannot go any farther. And he stretched himself upon a bench and fell asleep.
Soon afterwards the robbers came, and angrily asked what strange boy was lying there.
Ah,
Said the old woman,
it is an innocent child who has lost himself in the forest, and out of pity I have let him come in. He has to take a letter to the queen.
The robbers opened the letter and read it, and in it was written that the boy, as soon as he arrived, should be put to death. Then the hard-hearted robbers felt pity, and their leader tore up the letter and wrote another, saying that as soon as the boy came, he should be married at once to the king's daughter. Then they let him lie quietly on the bench until the next morning, and when he awoke they gave him the letter and showed him the right way. And the queen, when she had received the letter and read it, did as was written in it. and had a splendid wedding feast prepared, and the king's daughter was married to the luck child, and as the youth was handsome and agreeable, she lived with him in joy and contentment. After some time the king returned to his palace and saw that the prophecy was fulfilled, and the luck child married to his daughter.
How has that come to pass?
Said he.
I gave quite another order in my letter.
So the queen gave him the letter, and said that he might see for himself what was written in it. The king read the letter and saw quite well that it had been exchanged for the other. He asked the youth what had become of the letter entrusted to him, and why he had brought another instead of it.
I know nothing about it.
Answered he.
It must have been changed in the night, when I slept in the forest.
The king said in a passion.
You shall not have everything quite so much your own way. Whosoever marries my daughter must fetch me from hell 3 golden hairs from the head of the devil. Bring me what I want, and you shall keep my daughter.
In this way the king hoped to be rid of him forever. But the luck child answered.
I will fetch the golden hairs. I am not afraid of the devil.
Thereupon he took leave of them and began his journey. The road led him to a large town, where the watchman by the gates asked him what his trade was, and what he knew.
I know everything.
Answered the luck child.
Then you can do us a favor.
Said the watchman.
If you will tell us why our market fountain, which once flowed with wine, has become dry, and no longer gives even water?
That you shall know.
Answered he.
Only wait until I come back.
Then he went farther and came to another town, and there also the gatekeeper asked him what was his trade, and what he knew.
I know everything.
Answered he.
Then you can do us a favor and tell us why a tree in our town which once bore golden apples now does not even put forth leaves?
You shall know that.
Answered he.
Only wait until I come back.
Then he went on and came to a wide river over which he must go. The ferryman asked him what his trade was, and what he knew.
I know everything.
Answered he.
Then you can do me a favor,
Said the ferryman.
and tell me why I must always be rowing backwards and forwards, and am never set free.
You shall know that.
Answered he.
Only wait until I come back.
When he had crossed the water he found the entrance to hell. It was black and sooty within, and the devil was not at home, but his grandmother was sitting in a large armchair.
What do you want?
Said she to him, but she did not look so very wicked.
I should like to have 3 golden hairs from the devil's head.
Answered he.
Else I cannot keep my wife.
That is a good deal to ask for.
Said she.
If the devil comes home and finds you, it will cost you your life. But as I pity you, I will see if I cannot help you.
She changed him into an ant and said,
Creep into the folds of my dress. You will be safe there.
Yes.
Answered he.
So far, so good. But there are 3 things besides that I want to know. Why a fountain which once flowed with wine has become dry, and no longer gives even water. Why a tree which once bore golden apples does not even put forth leaves, and why a ferryman must always be going backwards and forwards, and is never set free.
Those are difficult questions.
Answered she.
But only be silent and quiet and pay attention to what the devil says when I pull out the 3 golden hairs.
As the evening came on, the devil returned home. No sooner had he entered than he noticed that the air was not pure.
I smell man's flesh.
Said he.
All is not right here.
Then he pried into every corner and searched but could not find anything. His grandmother scolded him.
It has just been swept,
Said she.
and everything put in order, and now you're upsetting it again. You have always got man's flesh in your nose. Sit down and eat your supper.
When he had eaten and drunk he was tired, and laid his head in his grandmother's lap, and before long he was fast asleep, snoring and breathing heavily. Then the old woman took hold of a golden hair, pulled it out, and laid it down near her.
Oh,
Cried the devil.
what are you doing?
I have had a bad dream.
Answered the grandmother.
So I seized hold of your hair.
What did you dream then?
Said the devil.
I dreamed that a fountain in a marketplace from which wine once flowed was dried up, and not even water would flow out of it. What is the cause of it?
Oh, if they did but know it, answered the devil. There is a toad sitting under a stone in the well. If they killed it, the wine would flow again.
He went to sleep again and snored until the windows shook. Then she pulled the second hair out.
Ha! What are you doing?
Cried the devil angrily.
Do not take it ill.
Said she.
I did it in a dream.
What have you dreamt this time?
Asked he.
I dreamt that in a certain kingdom there stood an apple tree which had once borne golden apples, but now would not even bear leaves. What, think you, was the reason?
Oh, if they did but know.
Answered the devil.
A mouse is gnawing at the root. If they killed this, they would have golden apples again. But if it gnaws much longer, the tree will wither altogether. But leave me alone with your dreams. If you disturb me in my sleep again, you will get a box on the ear.
The grandmother spoke gently to him until he fell asleep again and snored. Then she took hold of the third golden hair and pulled it out. The devil jumped up, roared out, and would have treated her ill if she had not quieted him once more and said,
Who can help bad dreams?
What was the dream, then?
Asked he, and was quite curious.
I dreamt of a ferryman who complained that he must always ferry from one side to the other and was never released. What is the cause of it?
I, the fool.
Answered the devil.
When anyone comes and wants to go across, he must put the oar in his hand, and the other man will have to ferry, and he will be free.
As the grandmother had plucked out the 3 golden hairs, and the 3 questions were answered, she let the old serpent alone, and he slept until daybreak. When the devil had gone out again, the old woman took the ant out of the folds of her dress, and gave the luck child his human shape again.
There are the 3 golden hairs for you,
Said she.
What the devil said to your 3 questions, I suppose you heard.
Yes,
Answered he.
I heard, and will take care to remember.
You have what you want,
Said she.
and now you can go your way.
He thanked the old woman for helping him in his need, and left Hell well content that everything had turned out so fortunately. When he came to the ferryman, he was expected to give the promised answer.
Ferry me across first,
Said the luck child.
and then I will tell you how you can be set free.
And when he reached the opposite shore, he gave him the devil's advice.
Next time anyone comes who wants to be ferried over, just put the oar in his hand.
He went on and came to the town wherein stood the unfruitful tree, and there too the watchman wanted an answer. So he told him what he had heard from the devil.
Kill the mouse which is gnawing at its root, and it will again bear golden apples.
Then the watchman thanked him, and gave him as a reward 2 asses laden with gold, which followed him. At last he came to the town whose well was dry. He told the watchman what the devil had said.
A toad is in the well beneath a stone. You must find it and kill it, and the well will again give wine and plenty.
The watchman thanked him, and also gave him 2 asses laden with gold. At last the luck child got home to his wife, who was heartily glad to see him again, and to hear how well he had prospered in everything. To the king he took what he had asked for, the devil's 3 golden hairs, and when the king saw the 4 asses laden with gold he was quite content, and said,
Now all the conditions are fulfilled, and you can keep my daughter. But tell me, dear son-in-law, where did all that gold come from? This is tremendous wealth.
I was rowed across a river
answered he.
and got it there. It lies on the shore instead of sand.
Can I too fetch some of it?
Said the king, and he was quite eager about it.
As much as you like.
Answered he.
There is a ferryman on the river. Let him ferry you over, and you can fill your sacks on the other side.
The greedy king set out in all haste, and when he came to the river he beckoned to the ferryman to put him across. The ferryman came and bade him get in, and when they got to the other shore he put the oar in his hand and sprang out. But from this time forth the king had to ferry, as a punishment for his sins. Perhaps he is ferrying still. If he is, it is because no one has taken the oar from him. The story gives us lessons about life. First is the lesson of perseverance. In life, we often face difficulties and challenges. But like the boy in the story, we need to persevere and never give up. The second is a lesson about intelligence. The boy used his intelligence to solve problems and difficulties. This shows that intelligence and creativity can help us overcome difficulties in life. Finally, a lesson on courage. The young man bravely faced his fear to complete the mission. This shows that courage is an important factor to achieve success in life. Second fairy tale. The 3 spinners. There was once a girl who was lazy and would not spin, and her mother could not persuade her to do what she would. At last the mother became angry and out of patience, and gave her a good beating, so that she cried out loudly. At that moment the queen was going by. As she heard the crying, she stopped, and going into the house, she asked the mother why she was beating her daughter, so that everyone outside in the street could hear her cries. The woman was ashamed to tell of her daughter's laziness, so she said,
I cannot stop her from spinning. She is forever at it, and I am poor and cannot furnish her with flax enough.
Then the queen answered,
I like nothing better than the sound of the spinning wheel, and always feel happy when I hear its humming. Let me take your daughter with me to the castle. I have plenty of flax. She shall spin there to her heart's content.
The mother was only too glad of the offer, and the queen took the girl with her. When they reached the castle, the queen showed her 3 rooms which were filled with the finest flax, as full as they could hold.
Now you can spin me this flax,
said she,
and when you can show it me all done, you shall have my eldest son for bridegroom. You may be poor, but I make nothing of that. Your industry is dowry enough.
The girl was inwardly terrified, for she could not have spun the flax, even if she were to live to be 100 years old, and were to sit spinning every day of her life from morning to evening. And when she found herself alone, she began to weep, and sat so for 3 days without putting her hand to it. On the 3rd day, the queen came, and when she saw that nothing had been done of the spinning, she was much surprised, but the girl excused herself by saying that she had not been able to begin because of the distress she was in at leaving her home and her mother. The excuse contented the queen, who said, however, as she went away,
Tomorrow you must begin to work.
When the girl found herself alone again, she could not tell how to help herself or what to do, and in her perplexity, she went and gazed out of the window. There she saw 3 women passing by, and the first of them had a broad, flat foot, the second had a big underlip that hung down over her chin, and the third had a remarkably broad thumb. They all of them stopped in front of the window, and called out to know what it was that the girl wanted. She told them all her need, and they promised her their help, and said,
Then will you invite us to your wedding, and not be ashamed of us, and call us your cousins, and let us sit at your table? If you will promise this, we will finish off your flax spinning in a very short time.
With all my heart,
answered the girl.
Only come in now and begin at once.
Then these same women came in, and she cleared a space in the first room for them to sit and carry on their spinning. The first one drew out the thread and moved the treadle that turned the wheel. The second moistened the thread. The third twisted it and rapped with her finger on the table, and as often as she rapped, a heap of yarn fell to the ground, and it was most beautifully spun. But the girl hid the 3 spinsters out of the queen's sight, and only showed her, as often as she came, the heaps of well-spun yarn, and there was no end to the praises she received. When the first room was empty, they went on to the second, and then to the third, so that at last all was finished. Then the 3 women took their leaves, saying to the girl,
Do not forget what you have promised, and it will be all the better for you.
So when the girl took the queen and showed her the empty rooms and the great heaps of yarn, the wedding was at once arranged, and the bridegroom rejoiced that he should have so clever and diligent a wife, and praised her exceedingly.
I have 3 cousins,
Said the girl,
and as they have shown me a great deal of kindness, I would not wish to forget them in my good fortune. May I be allowed to invite them to the wedding, and to ask them to sit at the table with us?
The queen and the bridegroom said at once.
There is no reason against it.
So when the feast began and came the 3 spinsters in strange guise, and the bride said,
Dear cousins, you are welcome.
Oh,
said the bridegroom.
how come you to have such dreadfully ugly relations?
And then he went up to the first spinster and said,
How is it that you have such a broad flat foot?
With treading,
answered she.
with treading.
Then he went up to the second and said,
How is it that you have such a great hanging lip?
With licking,
answered she.
with licking,
Then he asked the third,
How is it that you have such a broad thumb?
With twisting thread.
answered she.
With twisting thread.
Then the bridegroom said that from that time forward his beautiful bride should never touch a spinning wheel, and so she escaped that tiresome flax spinning. In life, luck is always a factor that has a significant influence on each of us. If she wasn't lucky, the girl in the story wouldn't have had the chance to be taken back to the palace by the queen and have the 3 spinners help her complete her work. Know how to keep your promises. Although the girl in the story is lazy, she knows how to keep her promise, not afraid of being embarrassed by the strange and ugly appearance of the 3 spinners, recognizing them as relatives on her father's and mother's side, on the same tray as me at the wedding. Therefore, the 3 spinners not only helped her spin all the yarn the queen had given her in the shortest possible time, but also made the prince never let her get her hands on spinning again. However, laziness is a bad trait that causes us to lose our own opportunities and be shunned by others. Therefore, young people, always study hard and help your family with even the simplest tasks. Third fairy tale. Cat and mouse in partnership. A cat had made the acquaintance of a mouse, and had said so much to her about the great love and friendship that he felt for her, that at last the mouse agreed that they should live and keep house together.
But we must make preparations for winter, or else we shall suffer from hunger.
Said the cat.
And you, little mouse, cannot venture out everywhere, or in the end you will be caught in a trap.
This good advice was followed, and they bought a pot of fat, but they did not know where to store it. Finally, after much consideration, the cat said,
I know of no place where it will be better stored up than in the church. No one dares take anything away from there. We will put it beneath the altar and not touch it until we are needed.
So the pot was stored safely away, but it was not long before the cat took a great longing for it, and said to the mouse,
I wanted to tell you, little mouse, that my cousin has brought a little son into the world, and she has asked me to be his godfather. He is white with brown spots, and I am to hold him over the baptismal font. Let me go out today, and you look after the house by yourself.
Yes, yes,
answered the mouse.
by all means go. And if you get anything good to eat, think of me. I would like to drink a drop of sweet red christening wine myself.
All this, however, was untrue. The cat had no cousin and had not been asked to be godfather. He went straight to the church, crept up to the pot of fat, began to lick at it, and licked off the top of the fat. Then he went for a stroll on the roofs of the town, looked out for opportunities, and then stretched out in the sun, licking his whiskers whenever he thought of the pot of fat. He did not return home until it was evening.
Well, here you are again,
said the mouse.
You must have had a happy day,
Everything went well.
Answered the cat.
What name did they give the child?
Asked the mouse.
Top off.
Said the cat quite coolly.
Top off?
Cried the mouse.
That is a very odd and uncommon name. Is it a usual one in your family?
What does that matter?
Said the cat.
It is no worse than Crump Thief, as your godchildren are called.
Before long, the cat was seized by another fit of longing. He said to the mouse,
You must do me a favor, and once more manage the house alone for a day. I have been asked again to be godfather, and since the child has a white ring around its neck, I cannot refuse.
The good mouse consented. However, the cat crept behind the town wall to the church and devoured half the pot of fat.
Nothing tastes as good as that which one eats by oneself,
he said, and was quite satisfied with his day's work. When he arrived home, the mouse asked,
What name was this child christened with?
Half gone.
Answered the cat.
Half gone? What are you saying? I have never heard that name in all my life. I'll wager it's not in the almanac.
The cat's mouth soon again began to water for the delicious goods.
All good things come in threes,
he said to the mouse.
I have been asked to be godfather again. The child is totally black, only it has white paws. Otherwise it has not a single white hair on its whole body. This only happens once every few years. You will let me go, won't you?
Top off? Half gone? Answered the mouse. They are such odd names that they make me stop and think.
Here you sit at home,
said the cat,
with your dark gray fur coat and long braid of hair capturing fantasies. That is because you do not go out in the daytime.
During the cat's absence, the mouse cleaned the house and put it in order, but the greedy cat devoured all the rest of the fat.
One has peace only after everything is eaten up,
he said to himself. Well filled and fat, he did not return home until nighttime. The mouse immediately asked what name had been given to the third child.
You will not like it either,
said the cat.
His name is All Gone.
All Gone?
Cried the mouse.
That is the most worrisome name of all. I have never seen it in print. All Gone? What can that mean?
Then she shook her head, curled herself up, and lay down to sleep. From this time forth, no one invited the cat to be godfather, but when winter had come and there was no longer anything to be found outside, the mouse thought of their stored food and said,
Come, cat, we will go to our pot of fat which we have stored up for ourselves. It will taste good now.
Yes,
answered the cat.
You will enjoy it as much as you would enjoy sticking that dainty tongue of yours out of the window.
They set out on their way, but when they arrived, the pot of fat, to be sure, was still in its place, but it was empty.
Alas,
said the mouse.
Now I see what has happened. Now it comes to light. You are a true friend. You ate everything when you were serving as a godfather. First top off, then half done, then...
Be quiet,
cried the cat.
One more word, and I will eat you too.
All gone?
Was already on the poor mouse's lips. She had scarcely spoken it before the cat sprang on her, seized her, and swallowed her down. You see, that is the way of the world. This is the end of the story. Did you like it? Have you learned the lessons from the story I told? Remember to like, share, subscribe. See you tomorrow.